The story of Agincourt comes to us from several contemporary sources. Henry V had invaded France to recapture lands he believed were rightfully English. His army besieged the port of Harfleur, but many of his men were struck down by dysentery. With weakened troops and the winter approaching, Henry turned north and headed for the English base at Calais. A huge French army now massed to cut off the English withdrawal. Some claim that as many as 40 or even 60,000 knights and men-at-arms stood against Henry V's army of a fraction of this number, perhaps just 5,000 or 6,000. The confident French knights advanced to what they assumed would be certain glory. Thousands of armoured men charged forward across the narrow battlefield. Most of Henry's troops were archers, only lightly armoured if at all, yet they were experts with one of the deadliest weapons of the medieval era, the longbow. The English archers rained down volley after volley of arrows on the French knights, who fell into panic and chaos in the mud, where, trapped and helpless, they were either killed or captured in large numbers. It was the stuff of legend, and quickly formed the mythic fabric of an England with a newly emergent sense of nationhood. This is broadly the way Agincourt was viewed for many years, for centuries even. It wasn't until relatively recently that historians began looking into the real story. Professor Anne Curry is the world's leading expert on the documented sources relating to Agincourt. Her starting point was the size of the two armies present at the battle. The assumed view often taken is that the French had a huge army of tens of thousands of men, outnumbering the tiny English army. But few, if any, researchers had gone back to the existing records to verify this. Many of Henry V's army, famously, were archers, and began by looking for records of these men.
The received wisdom was that we didn't know the names of the archers who were at the Battle of Agincourt. It was thought we knew the names of the men-at-arms because of what's known as the Agincourt Roll, which is an early 17th century transcript. I made it my mission to go to the National Archives to look at all of the original source materials. This was a paid army, so we had a lot of pay records in the Exchequer files. I made it my mission really to find out the names of the people on the campaign.
The files revealed just how many men Henry V assembled for the campaign in France.
England didn't have a standing army at this point. However, it had enough military activity to make it possible to be a professional soldier. For the Agincourt campaign, the army that set out to go there, we know the names of at least 7,500 people of what was probably an army over 11,000, perhaps nearly 12,000.
Finding out exactly how many men were at the battle on the 25th of October 1415 is more difficult. Yet from Anne's work, it can be estimated that Henry's army possibly numbered around 8,000 or 9,000, more than the smaller force of perhaps 5,000 or 6,000 suggested in the past. Also, it seems the French army was not quite as large as many have suggested.
Looking at the French army is much more complicated than looking at the English army. We have some financial records, but we just don't have as much, because after all, the French are on the defensive and they would no doubt hope to have as many troops as they possibly could raise, say from towns and things of that sort. But one very useful indication is the amount of money that they were raising. We have one very important document where Charles VI ordered the raising of money to support an army of 9,000 men. That was going to be made up of 6,000 men-at-arms and 3,000 gens de trait. That could include longbowmen and crossbowmen. You see immediately the reversal, if you like, of the English ratio. We've got 2 men-at-arms to every 1 archer, effectively, in the French army. So I believe that the idea was to have a 9,000 strong army. It would have added to that, so maybe we could get it up to about 12,000, but it's really hard to see how it could have been larger than that. These ideas of 40,000, 60,000 just are not credible in the light of French army sizes in this period. But it would have been men-at-arms heavy, and it would have been aristocratic. But I think you've got to remember the English army was also aristocratic. There really isn't that much difference. We have this idea of the English army being full of Tommies, if you like, being a popular army, and the French army being sort of, hooray Henrys. In fact, socially they are quite similar to each other. In terms of equipment, they are very similar to each other. And also the thing that people forget too is the French have had to move huge distances too. Everybody misses that out. It's as if they've already flown into Agincourt. Remember, they also are moving long distances. They would be weary. They would be running out of food as well.